Breaking news as the Philadelphia Flyers have made their first move of the offseason. In is Simone Benoit and Joseph Woll, a goalie. And out is Sam Urson and Emil Andre. And a third round pick in this year's draft. I like the move for the Flyers. I think this is a no-brainer and a massive upgrade in goaltending. Now, with that said, I didn't think Sam Urson was good. I never thought Sam Urson was good. I looked at Sam Urson as like Timu Robert Esch, where like if everything broke right, he was a very, very, very mediocre goalie who could kind of convince you that he was good because Philadelphia has no idea what good goaltending is. It's been that long. But for the most part, he's going to also remind you often that he's just meh. Emil Andre, on the other hand, I think he had a chance. I think he had an opportunity to make it in Philly. The problem is, and Danny Briere talked about this, they're very, very small on defense. And he was like the third small defenseman, and he wanted to get bigger. And I'm talking I mean Danny Briere. So when you have like a Cam York and a Jamie Drysdale, he mentioned, having Emil Andre, it's just a small defensive core. They wanted to get bigger, hence trading for Simone Benoit. Simone Benoit is a 6'4" defenseman. He's fine if he's number 7 or 8. If he's on that third pair defense, I think you're okay. You're set. But this move is interesting because I look at it like, well, you want to get bigger. And that's kind of the reasons why you traded for Rasmus Ristolainen like 5 years ago. Now, granted, when you traded for Rasmus Ristolainen, Danny Briere was not in charge. That was a nice guy Chuck move, Chuck Fletcher. And I feel like ever since they did that move and they traded a first-round pick for Rasmus Ristolainen, and then they subsequently signed him to a ridiculous 5-year contract, they've been trying to recoup that first-round pick. And I wonder if this move is a sign that Rasmus Ristolainen will be traded during this offseason. They've been trying for damn near 2 years now to get rid of him, trying to find a playoff team that is looking for the big, hulking, physical defenseman. And maybe this year they'll finally be able to do it because with the cap going up, that $5 million cap hit, it's much more manageable than it was a couple years ago. So you might be able to find a team to take Rasmus Ristolainen. What I don't think you're going to have is I don't think you're going to find a team that's willing to trade a first-round pick for Rasmus Ristolainen in this year's draft because this year's draft is so deep. So I think you might be in a situation where you're looking at trading Rasmus Ristolainen. It's kind of like trading A.J. Brown. Like, you'll be able to get a first-round pick for him, but it'll probably be 2027, maybe 2028. But it probably won't be 2026 because the draft is so deep. I'm not saying that trading for Simone Benoit, a third-pair defenseman, is bells and whistles. This isn't Mekhi Lemon getting drafted by the Eagles and it's like, okay, now it's definite. A.J. Brown's out. This isn't that. But I just found it interesting that Danny Briere is talking about a small defensive core with Emil Andre, and you trade for Simone Benoit, and you've been trying to get rid of Rasmus Ristolainen. I'm just kind of reading between the tea leaves here. I wouldn't be surprised if, obviously, the Flyers keep him, but it kind of goes against the line of thinking I have with the Joseph Woll move. I wonder if the Flyers would have made this move had they not made the playoffs. Because I think the Flyers might have looked at it like we could have made more noise in the playoffs if we had a more cohesive goalie tandem than we did last year. Last year, they didn't really have that. They were relying on Dan Vladar for the majority of it. And Joseph Woll gives them the opportunity to rest Dan Vladar a little bit more. I mean, Sam Urson was so bad, and it basically was a merry-go-round of backup goaltenders. And at one point, Dan Vladar went down, and it wasn't good. Joseph Woll is a solidified NHL goalie, and I think he's a really, really good backup on a decent playoff team. I think the Flyers are looking to make that next step, that next jump, and Joseph Woll is that. Joseph Woll was a guy that, look, when the Maple Leafs were good, when the Maple Leafs were a playoff team, Joseph Woll's numbers were good. He had a save percentage of like 909, goals against average of, 2.7, 2.8. He was a solidified backup goalie. Last year, everything went wrong for the Maple Leafs. And they were rewarded with that, with getting the first overall pick. But everything went wrong with them. And you look at some of the Maple Leafs numbers on paper, and Simone Benoit is the same thing. It's like, all of a sudden, it was like minus 22. Joseph Wall's numbers, horrendously bad. So I think if you're going off last year, you really shouldn't do that because everything went bad for the Maple Leafs last year. Their defensive core wasn't good. Simone Benoit is part of that. But, like, it just all wasn't good. And a goalie needs a decent defensive core. The Flyers are trying to build that. They've put some work in trying to build up some of these guys, like Jamie Drysdale, taking him on. They made the trade for, God, begins with an R. Hit thumbs down for this. I'm drawing a blank. But, David Urich. They made that trade for him, former top 10 draft pick. He's now on his third organization, but they think they can get something out of him. And they're kind of played the slow game. And I don't necessarily disagree with it. But my point is a goaltender is at times, not always, but at times only as good as the defense in front of him and the scheme that they're playing. And last year in Toronto, it was really bad. So I just wouldn't judge anything that Joseph Woll did last year against them. I would look more at his career numbers, and career numbers are good. He's in the second year. This will be the second year of a 3-year deal at 3.6. The Flyers are going to lock up Dan Vladar for an extended period. I think Kevin Weeks had rumors that they're talking to him, but like that's a formality at this point because he was so good last year. But that's another reason to like this trade. Is Kim Delabaugh, the Flyers goaltender coach, goalie coach, identified Dan Vladar as a guy that he wanted on this club. And at that point, Dan Vladar was an afterthought in Calgary, let alone the NHL. So if Kim Delabaugh did the same thing with Joseph Woll, you got to like that move. You got to have some faith in Kim Delabaugh and his eye for talent to be able to go, okay, like I can work with this guy. I can get more out of him than Toronto did. And if, God forbid, something happened to Dan Vladar, we at least aren't panicking, whereas the Flyers are usually panicking. So I really like the move for the Flyers. I think it's an upgrade. Trading a third-round pick in this year's draft, like whatever. I mean, you don't want to trade first-round picks, but third-round picks, fine. The Maple Leafs are rebuilding. This is a rebuilding move for them. Losing Sam Urson, no one's going to cry about that. Emil Andre was a forgotten piece in this organization. So I think this is an upgrade for the Flyers. Is it a massive upgrade? Is it one that you're going to sit there and be running out and grabbing jerseys and buying season tickets? No, it's not. But what it is that one of those minor moves where it could end up paying dividends down the line in season if, as I said, Dan Vladar goes down. Simone Benoit ends up being that physical force on the third pair. I don't think you want him on a first or second pair, that's for sure. But third pair, yeah, okay. And this is a move that I don't necessarily think the Flyers might have made had they not been a playoff team last year. But you speed up that rebuild because you were a playoff team. So you end up trading draft capital. And look, the reality is eventually you're going to have to trade some of these prospects. Eventually you're going to have to trade some of this draft capital because everybody can't play. I think that's something that Charlie O'Connor said, which you can see the interview up there. But yeah, overall, I like it. It's going to be interesting to see what the Flyers do for the rest of the offseason, especially leading up towards the draft, how many more moves they make. As I said, Rasmus Ristolainen's probably on the table because he's been on the table for damn near 3 seasons now. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section about this trade, whether you like it, whether you don't. As far as comments go, I'm probably only going to respond to channel members, so become a channel member, support the channel. It's cheap and it helps. Hit thumbs up if you like this. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. Subscribing is cool. If you could do that, that'd be awesome. I'd really appreciate it. All right, I'm going to go now. I got a Costco chicken, so I got to tear that bitch up.